high percentage passes, but he's getting, he's getting close to being game ready.
You guys have had a few scrimmages this spring. Is there one or two guys that have really stood out in every scrimmage?
Yeah, the most improved guys right now are Sprinkle, are James Clark. James is really coming on. It's about time too. But he's a highly recruited guy with a lot of ability and a good person. He's just really taken this opportunity because, like I said, the four top guys, in theory, they might not be the four top guys, but they're not practicing at all. And that's Dontre and Curtis and Corey Smith and Noah. And Noah looked really good out there today, running and doing stuff on the side. But James Clark's one of them. Draymond had his best day as a Buckeye today. Draymond, now once again, he's night and day from where he needs to be. A kid named Jay Sean had a good scrimmage that we're counting on. He's a little bit twitched up inside. We need to have him perform. And Marcus Ball had a really good day today. Those are guys just off the top of my head. We're pass heavy right now on purpose. So I think once again it's still Briante and Mike are fighting it out, and the young guy's done a decent job. But he's not on the same level yet as Mike and Briante. So Mike and Briante are still, no one's separated themselves yet.
Opinion of the ban and affected them out?
I don't know. I just hate to see. The biggest thing that I didn't realize that was part of it is that now the MAC schools can't come here, and I mean, probably hundreds of scholarships have come out of here to those young players. And I know my son's getting recruited now a little bit, and you're like, what camps do you send them to? Not many kids can play at Ohio State, so don't send them, or send them. But now Bowling Green, they get a chance to watch him play. And once again, there's no hit on, when I was at Bowling Green, come to Ohio State's camp because you get to see all these players. So I didn't realize that was part of the conversation about I wish they'd revisit that part of it. But once again, I think sometimes there's knee-jerk reaction because people complain and all that, and I get it. I get that. I think that's a slippery slope, but I'm not worried about the high-level players because they're going to find a way to get where they got to get. And I'm talking about there's a big chunk of players out there that deserve to play major college football, and I think I hope they revisit it. And I'm not saying what's right or wrong, because I don't really know, but if you always think first about players, just like someone told me they passed the texting rule. That's the most ignorant thing I've ever heard. Because they can't manage the coaches, they can't police the coaches. Okay, fire the coaches that do it. Fire them, and make the penalty so absolute out of control that they won't do it. You'll never coach again in major college football if you on purpose text someone. Okay, move on to the next rule. But think about the student athlete first, and I think they need to revisit this because I did see some good stories. I read about a kid that never got a shot to play, but he went to, because he can't afford to, everything's on the player's dime right now. So it's going to be interesting how they keep revisiting that. It's just okay, just okay. And he took over for a very valuable guy, and just okay. I expect more out of him, and our offensive staff in general. I think we have to do a better job than we did a year ago. I see it happening this spring, and but I see a growth of an offensive staff. Sure. Yeah, that's obvious answers, absolutely. And the one thing that we're going to have, it's supposed to be great weather. I'm hoping we get 100,000 people. So that's another appeal to our fans to come on out. And this year, even more than last year, to see how some people. I want to see Joe Burrow perform in front of 100,000 people in the stadium, and I want to see Mike Weber perform in front of 100,000 people. They've never done it on the defensive line. How's Draymond going to perform in a nice, loud environment where things are going on and it's chaos? And so I'm appealing to our fans to come out and support us for a lot of reasons. First of all, it's supposed to be a nice day. Come on out and watch your team play. We appreciate you coming out. And there's extremely the value this year is greater than probably in our 4 years here to see how these young players respond. Well, you don't want it for the for us, number one, not the fans, but sometimes you get caught in those situations. And if it was 22,000, then yeah, just have a practice because it doesn't matter. In that stadium, you put 12,000 people in there, of course, just have a scrimmage because it doesn't matter. What's the difference between out there? But we get that. There's nothing like performing in front of 100,000 people, and for me to watch that. So I have had that because you get injuries and you get depth issues, and we've played with the offensive line for both sides was the same. They just kept changing jerseys because I didn't want to not have that opportunity to play in front of a huge crowd.
Can you talk about?
I said that?
Yeah.
Not smarter than the head coach.
talk about his development and where he is today, where you're
Outstanding.
seeing him today, and,
Yeah,
as opposed to,
Well, last year he didn't have spring practice. The year before, I'm not sure he had it either. I don't know, has he ever had spring ball here? You'd have to go back in the archives and think he's never been the quarterback in spring practice. You know that for sure. So he's having a great spring. It's not, we're changing some things on him that we felt fundamentally he wasn't where he needed to be last year for whatever reason. So it's, and the word twitch comes up with JT a lot. He's a fast player that we need him to play as fast as he can. And what happens when you play with receivers that don't know what they're doing, that sometimes we call it one bad rep is worth 100 good ones. And so if your body sees you have a bad rep because the receiver's too slow, he's not where he's supposed to be, you need 100 of those good reps to get your mind and body so when that happens in a game. So we're having them just, even if it's a bad receiver, throw the ball where you would throw it. And then I actually watch a film with the quarterbacks, receivers, tight ends in this room because they're so young and saying where the ball should be. And I noticed in the last week it's been much better. So he's a valuable player for us. Well, that doesn't get in the way of that other stuff. I said the texting things is the most ignorant thing I've ever heard in my life. And keeps telling you guys how ignorant it is. And then always appealing to people making decisions because it's hard. You know, if they're making a decision because of coaches are upset about it, that's not the point here. Put a student athlete on that same committee and say, what do you guys think? You know, student athletes, I don't know all these, you know, I can start giving you names of committees and it's just another new committee, subcommittee this, subcommittee this, subcommittee. How many student athletes are on those? And ask them, what's your opinion of this? And listen to them. And if it's as strong as I saw where some kids are saying, I don't know, if you take away this camp, those are opportunities away from players. Well, but these coaches don't like it. So that's okay. Listen to the student athlete. What do they have to say about it? And I think we learned our lesson with the families getting to go. Of course, my question is, why wasn't that done when they first brought up the college football playoff? So whoever has that checklist, number one, student athlete, then all the other stuff about building facilities and salaries, and if the commissioner's grandchildren get to go to the championship games or not, because they all do, right? But you're telling me that the backup tight ends family can't go. It's just common sense, but why isn't that the number one thing? How does a student athlete feel about this rule? Do you really want text messages from 100 universities on your phone when you come out of school? Maybe the student athlete, the ones I know, what? No, I don't want to hear from these schools, but now you're going to get them. Some intern is going to be punching text messages on your phone, and you're going to get, and maybe you can block numbers and all that, but that's just too hard. Why? Because it's easier on coaches. Or maybe it's easier for the enforcement because they just can't, because people are doing it. I guess it just doesn't make sense to me.
The staffing's teammates?
Just over time. You know, Marcus Ball is another one. There's guys that have issues and they've grown. You know, sometimes they're 17, 18-year-old issues. Sometimes they're character flaws. If we think it's a character flaw, then eventually we got to move them on. We try to change guys, but we don't, you know, I hear people, why did you keep that kid? Because we're trying to help change them. And, you know, Tracy's grown out of that mess that he was in, and I found out exactly what happened that maybe people here don't know, but that's not important. So they're on probationary status, and once they start moving away, but it's always going to be there. It's not you just forget it. And this university doesn't forget it either. So you gotta, you know, keep straight.
To see out of them this spring, and how anxious are you to
No,
see
they're
them
much
on
better. I
Saturday?
made a point. One of the players came in the other day and said, do you really enjoy coaching? And I said, yes. And I go, no. Then I go, yes. Then I go, no. And then so I had an emergency team meeting just about 10 minutes after that. And it was, I just had a player ask me, I answered yes. I love coaching a good kid, good student, good guy that does everything right, Austin Mack. So we had 4 of them come in at Michael Jordan, Austin Mack, Jonathan Cooper, and Antonio Williams. They answered, how do you like coaching those guys? I love them. They're over 3-point students. I don't know if they missed a class yet. And they do everything right. Then I can give you a list of names. No, I don't like coaching those guys. No, matter of fact, I have a hard time being around them. And we try to be honest with our players because we want everybody to be like that. So they're much more than we even thought they would be, because you never know what you get. Because sometimes high school coaches and people tell you they're the greatest people in the world, and you get here and they're not. So we try to change, but those kids are doing great. I put Malik Barrow into that too, because he's really doing, but he's been hurt.
jersey? I mean,
Yeah.
I would think you've thought that through a little bit.
Yeah, I think we'll let Steven and Joe play a little bit live. I might bring the jerseys out to cover them up a little bit, but those guys have been live pretty much throughout the spring because that's a big part of who we are. How do they really, not who we are, how college football is, how good's that quarterback to escape pressure and all that. JT will play. How much to be determined, and really we haven't even got there yet. We want to really have a good Monday and Wednesday. I'll let you know more later in the week.
We'll have
Yeah,
added.
I think we'll have enough for a full team. Once again,
Yeah.
we'll give you that information after Wednesday.
How much had you met or been around? I would think Will Smith was around maybe when y'all played down in New Orleans a couple of years ago and stuff. And just, what was just your thoughts on him? I'm not sure how well you knew him, but just what were your thoughts yesterday when you got the news and what that means?
I mean, Luke Fickle sent me a text. Coach Fickle knows him as well as anybody. I believe I met him. You know, was a very unassuming, didn't expect the world to stop when he walked in the room, and, you know, I guess just a wonderful guy and all that wonderful family. So we had a moment of silence and lifted up their family in prayer this morning, and it's just tragic. And then we use it just like there's some legal issues across the country. So we spent the first 10 minutes of today's meeting talking about some issues that are going on in college football, and then also, you know, press pause, you know, and then situations. And I don't know the whole situation, but you try to educate your team any chance you can.
And Leslie, are you going to, like, literally actively try to get that rule changed that Kent State MAC schools can be at your camp like they have been? They've been coming
When we
to
get
camp
through
forever.
spring football, then we might decide, but we got to get ready for Wednesday's practice, and I hope they reconsider it. I hope after an article one of you guys does, maybe they'll call and ask our opinion.